A new order paper response shows that the Liberals aren't all that interested in studying both sides of the firearm debate before they come along and grab your guns. Today, I'll show you what the Liberals were asked and the studies they refused to read. The Liberals' new gun control legislation, Bill C-71, makes it harder for lawful people to get and then keep their gun licenses. It bans rifles already in circulation, and it tracks license holders when they buy, sell, contemplate selling or buying, or give away their guns. And while Bill C-71 says it doesn't technically create another gun registry, it does require stores to track you and your guns, which is just a registry by another name. The law also brings back the requirement to call some cubicle-dwelling government bureaucrat somewhere far away every time you want to take your handgun to the gun range or to the gunsmith, which are the only places you're allowed to legally use it anyway. Bill C-71 creates more paperwork and more penalties for normal people, but it doesn't increase penalties for violent criminals who obviously don't follow gun laws in the first place. It targets the wrong people. Now, the bill has passed the House, but it's winding its way through the Senate committee, where thankfully conservative senators are doing their darndest to gut the bill and make it as toothless as possible. Now, did the Liberal government ever study the value of gun ownership before they've now taken steps to either make it harder or nearly impossible for Canadians to buy and keep their guns? Write your guesses down now, because I have the full answer to that question coming up. It comes in the form of a response to an order paper question from Saskatchewan MP Brad Trost. Trost asked, with regard to firearms policy, has the government analyzed the benefits of gun ownership, and if so, what are the details of such an analysis, including whether the government has analyzed the topics cited in the Library of Parliament Parliamentary Research Branch paper entitled The Benefits of Gun Ownership, prepared by Lynn Cassavant, Political and Social Affairs Division, and Anthony G. Jackson, Economic Division, dated April 2nd, 2004. So to be clear, Trost is asking whether or not the Liberals bothered to even read an existing study that sits in the Library of Parliament that was given to the government of the day way back in 2004, as in the work's already done for the Liberals. Now, I dug up that study and I read through it. According to the synopsis of the study, it provides an inventory of perceived individual and societal and economic benefits of gun ownership for Canadians. It says that 3/4 of Canadian gun owners at the time said they used their firearms for hunting. But the study also says, and I quote, firearms for self-protection or the protection of property can be a useful tool for protecting oneself or a person or property from animals and human attacks both in the home and elsewhere. And for the Liberal government, who like to focus on feelings when drafting policy and legislation, the next part of this study is, well, sort of fun. It reads, having a firearm can also make people feel safer. American studies have suggested that most defensive gun owners feel safer, and most believed they are safer because they have a gun. But the study gets, well, even better. Look at this. To date, Gary A. Mauser, a professor in the Faculty of Business Administration at Simon Fraser University, is the only researcher to have published data on the defensive use of guns by Canadians. On the basis of 3 telephone surveys of the general public, Mauser estimates that Canadians use firearms to protect themselves, their families, or their property against human threats between 19,300 and 37,500 times each year. Furthermore, he estimates that the defensive use of firearms by Canadians to repel animal threats to be between 36,200 and 52,500 times annually. Since firearms are used in Canada around 66,000 times each year to defend against either human or animal threats, and more importantly, approximately 30,000 times annually to protect against criminal violence, this implies that the private ownership of firearms contributes significantly to public safety. Folks at home, can you humor me just a little bit? Let's keep reading this study together because I sort of kind of love it. It says, in his review of the literature for the Canadian Firearms Centre, Yvonne Dandurand notes that American studies have consistently indicated that victims of robberies and burglaries who resist with a firearm are less likely than other victims to lose their property and less likely to be injured than those who do not resist or who do so without a weapon. Based on these findings, several authors, including Mauser, have suggested that restrictions on firearm ownership prevent some victims from successfully defending themselves and their property, and as a result, place the lives of a number of law-abiding citizens at risk. The study also goes on to cite the economic benefits of gun ownership for subsistence hunters and for predator control, especially for farmers protecting valuable livestock. So what do you guys think? Do you think the Liberals pulled up the info included in this parliamentary study before hacking away at the gun rights of lawful Canadian gun owners? You know, before arguably endangering, as this study says, the lives of an estimated 3,300 Canadians annually whose lives are saved because they used firearms for self-defense from predators, both two-legged or four, before, as the Simon Fraser University professor surmises, preventing some victims from successfully defending themselves and their property? Well, here's the answer from the government. The government is hard at work delivering on our commitments to reduce gun violence through balanced, effective firearms measures that prioritize public safety while ensuring law-abiding Canadians are not unfairly impacted while respecting law-abiding gun owners, which is complete and total garbage because these gun laws only target the law-abiding. But let's go on. The Canadian Firearms Advisory Committee provides the government with pragmatic advice on the risks and benefits to reform Canadian firearms policies, laws, and regulations to ensure a modern firearms regime that will keep Canadians safe while being fair to law-abiding gun owners and businesses. So that's a really long way to get there, but what Public Safety Canada is saying here is that they have not bothered to consider or even read this pre-existing study, and instead they're just talking to the Canadian Firearms Advisory Committee, which is largely stacked with anti-gun activists. We know through the tireless work of the folks at the Gun Blog, who obtained details of the government's consultation sessions last year, that despite the government claiming they consulted with 53 individuals on Bill C-71, 7 of those say they weren't contacted by the government at all, and all 7 of those happen to be from the pro-firearms rights side of the debate. Fancy that. So to be clear, we have proof the government is avoiding talking to the pro-firearms advocates, and they're avoiding parliamentary studies that suggest that maybe, just maybe, gun ownership might be a net positive for Canadians. And it's important to note that outside of the left-wing busybody liberal world, most people don't think lawful Canadian gun owners are the problem at all. Earlier this year, a Liberal senator named Mobina Jaffer admitted that she hadn't received a single letter in favor of Bill C-71, but rather she received many, many letters against it. From the very beginning, Bill C-71 was a solution in search of a problem. The solution was to restrict our rights, and the government is clearly discarding or avoiding any evidence to the contrary, evidence that would disprove their bigoted theories and preconceived prejudices against Canadian gun owners. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. What you just saw there is the daily video that I do here at The Rebel, but did you know that I have my own weekly full-length show? It is aptly called The Gun Show, and we talk about issues facing Canadians in a way that you won't see done in the mainstream media. But to get access to my show and the rest of our incredible premium content, you should treat yourself to a Rebel subscription today.